series, which is another classic. I mean, before Eddie and Bloodyface, you had players like Muzzy and Saiyan who kind of like worked together a lot and live with each other, practice with each other as well. So it's fun to see them go head to head. They do have different lineups though, and Saiyan is going to ban the Priest away from Muzzy, while Muzzy's going to ban the Warrior, and we do feature a Demon Hunter for this lineup. It's another class that we haven't really seen much of in the early charts when we looked at representation going to this week. But still a very effective class on ladder. Does have some pretty interesting matches we can talk a little bit more about, but maybe focusing just more on the big picture. Why should we bring a deck like Soul Demon Hunter to the table this week, TJ?
Honestly, I didn't expect much Soul Demon Hunter this week, if only because I expected a little bit of a faster meta. But I do like some of the direction that players are taking with the Soul Demon Hunter and focusing more on like early game. Even going so far as to put like Battle Fiends, Mana Feeder, Pantheras, Wand Makers. Saiyan has kind of like an in-between where he does have some early game minions, but still has packs like that full late game punch with Lorekeeper Polkelt in the list. Soul Demon Hunter is one of those decks that I just never really have full confidence in, no matter what the matchup. Even the matchups on paper that are supposed to be good for it, I feel like it always needs to draw the right side of its deck in order to have any chance, even against good matchups. And it can draw dead a lot of the time and be run over a lot of the time. You really need to piece together your damage in succession. You can't have these like huge amount of damage early on, then a gap, and then a huge amount of damage later on. The deck does still feel very hit or miss for me, despite a lot of players saying that they're climbing well with it. A lot of players saying that it's really good in certain matchups. I'm not sold.
Okay.
Muzzy does have the rogue deck. It's a little bit slower variation of a stealth rogue, not the full aggressive version, which I do think that the Soul Demon Hunter could be good against, as well as Tempo Mage, which I do think that Soul Demon Hunter has a lot of game against. So position against Muzzy's lineup, I think we could see it take a pretty quick win. But like I said, even against good matchups, the consistency of this deck still leaves a lot to be desired.
All right. Well, we'll see who gets off to a 1-0 lead with this head-to-head, as both these players having made it to Division A is nice, as I believe Muzzy last season wasn't off to a good start, but was able to bring it back and finish on top of his division anyways. While Saiyan, we still have more question marks about how Saiyan is going to be performing, since at the beginning of GM he did mention that he's going to be taking on some other life projects, and I've had the opportunity to sit down with Saiyan, and that actually just involves just like his next stage of life. I believe Saiyan's taking like classes to learn how to do I believe coding or programming or things like that sort. And it's just cool to see that he still wants to kind of prioritize that, as I do believe that Hearthstone is a game that you could have a job and still be incredibly good at, and maybe even a top-level player, as long as you're able to be good with your time management, which is something that also Saiyan's been very mindful of. Fun fact, Saiyan's pretty much explored every kind of avenue of being a pro player. He's tried, of course, doing stream stuff. He's well known for his Watchstone. He tried doing content creation where he put on tournaments for himself and other people. He's also, obviously focused on just being a pro player. He's also been a coach back when he first started in Hearthstone competitive as well. And now he's as one of the highest performing Grandmasters in the Americas region alongside his buddy Muzzy.
Yeah, and it's been like this for a long time, where despite them being close, living together, having the same practice group, they both come to different conclusions on lineups, and it does make sense because they have different opponents each week, and they don't want to be predictable, because if you have two people that are bringing the same stuff each week, then it makes it easier for their opponents to counter and target them. So I'd like that they come to different conclusions. And Muzzy,
right.
Muzzy's he's looking a little different this week, Dan.
Yeah, we should tell Muzzy to put something on. You can't just come naked on a broadcast like that.
It does feel like that. I feel like something's missing, something crucial.
Yes. Or,
Structure of
Muzzy
space.
has found a reverse aging process. Little baby face Muzz.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the matchup. Tempo Mage versus the Soul Demon Hunter. I do feel like this is one of the better matchups for Soul Demon Hunter. I don't think it's the best matchup, but I feel like it's decent enough to call it one of the best. Just because the Mage deck doesn't really run too much disruption. They give you a lot of time. The tempo tools that Mage has at their disposal don't line up well with the removal / damage source of the Soul Demon Hunter. Soul Demon Hunter doesn't necessarily care about sticking minions on board and getting recurring damage, so the freeze effects don't do much, and the Mage doesn't really play taunts, so you can just kind of equip weapons and start smacking them, and they give you generally enough time to where you don't have to worry about too much early pressure and can kind of just set up these big damage swings. And Mage doesn't really do much about it. Oh, wow. And double jump picked up from Saiyan.
Wow. Nice.
So that is very good because there's only I believe a single. Oh, no. He runs one Consume Magic. There's only 2 Outcast cards in the deck, Skull of Gul'dan and the Consume Magic, which means that Saiyan could try to time this double jump to where he's playing a Skull of Gul'dan immediately upon playing it. The Consume Magic, though, may put a stop to that. All right. Well, pretty standard early game. Muzzy trying to amass some resources. The big thing about this matchup, I think, is basically just trying to find a big power turn. And a big power turn that plays around the removal options for the Demon Hunter. Because Demon Hunter has 2 very clear ways to remove. They have the Shard Shatter Mystic, which deals with a big board full of small stuff. And then they have Blade Dance, which is dependent on how much damage their weapon could be, and it's limited to 3 minions. So when you build a big board, you want to either go wider with medium stuff, like 4+ things with 4 to 3 health, or you want to go with one very big thing. And honestly, Muzzy's only play here is try and set up Shinvala. You have to try and put things into the way, because if you give the Soul Demon Hunter just time to set up, time to amass resources, they're just going to keep hitting you in the face turn after turn. And by the time you eventually start trying to make a play, you're already going to be dead or close to it. So I like, even though it's, effectively, throwing away his Shinvala there, it does heal him for 5. It delays Saiyan's game plan, and now can roll into this turn with maybe more options, though still does seem a little bit limited.
Oh, it says explode.
Yep, that's right. So Muzzy finally extending onto the board. And that Soul Fragment does end up going to waste. Ooh, a Twin Slice. Okay, so when you were lining out that Blade Dance here, were you kind of imagining this specific instance to use it, or should we just kind of take it a little bit more, on curve? There's a Soul Shard Lapidary waiting on 5.
Nah, you take this Blade Dance. Ooh, what was that? He was looking for Consume Magic, I think, in that scenario.
Yeah.
Because this Skull means that he can't outcast it next turn. Whereas if he hits Consume Magic, he can actually Consume Magic the Solarian, Astromancer Solarian, and deny Solarian Prime, which Saiyan can assume that is his only way to lose this game, as a Solarian Prime that goes very, very wrong. But yeah, to answer your question, I think you just take whatever removal you can get in that scenario. He's got a very clear game plan. He doesn't have too much damage in hand, limited removal in hand. But one thing he does do is have like a Soul Shard Lapidary, second slice. So if he can preserve minions and keep recurring damage going, that's a sweet addition. So This use Blade Dance. Oh, wow. This evocation needs to be pretty big.
Woo!
Holy moly!
Oh my goodness.
That's
That is 3
5
free
playable spells?
spells. Yeah, just a lot of free spells, and then the ability to play Mana Giant at the very end of it all.
Works against me.
That
Yeah.
sets up into Conjurer's Calling.
Maybe he did use Blade Dance a little too aggressively here. I mean, this is not really a turn that you can expect.
I mean, you can't, but like you also very much should, because that's kind of what Mage does.
Yeah.
However, he still is in an okay spot. He actually can clear this Giant.
Yeah, that is a clear. It's an expensive one. Requires taking 8 damage and 3 of the resources in your hand, but he does have Skull, so he can reload at some point in this game, and getting rid of that Mana Giant is a pretty massive deal. And you can tell just how massive it is by the expression on Muzzy's face. He really wanted to be able to Conjurer's Calling this and run away with the game. But alas, we'll have to wait. Now picks up Archmage Antonidas, which is just clunky in the hand right now.
Yeah, this is not a good opportunity to drop Raz Frost Whisper because he doesn't really do a lot onto the board. But at the same time, Muzzy has to try to think about developing something. He can't just let Soul Demon Hunter get a free turn to do whatever they want.
Such a beautiful.
Soul Shard Lapidary. Also a clear.
Yep.
Job's done.
Skull to follow it up. I mean, Saiyan seems to be smooth sailing from this point. Tempo Antonidas.
Require my assistance.
Yep. Hey, it's a must-kill target.
Wow. Yeah.
Alas, poor warlock.
And that Skull Gul'dan doesn't hit any soul fragments. Full discounts for Saiyan, who could play the Adraki War Blades, excuse me, and then you can use the Soul Shear to clear. Saiyan also doesn't have to play Soul Shear. He can simply trade in his minions, which might die anyways, and then develop the Lord Keeper Polkit,
Demons.
and then guarantee draw his Sociologist Militia to try and launch the counter-offensive against Muzzy. Instead of waiting for Muzzy to potentially draw something and he just keeps drawing reactive cards like Blade Dance and Soul Shear, he can cut to the chase. I admit, though, I haven't been doing a very diligent job keeping track of how many soul fragments are in the deck, though. I know that he's consumed a couple and even drawn one. So sometimes, prioritizing Sociologist Militia doesn't actually do enough.
Job's done.
I think there's only 2? I think the Soul Share ones are the only ones.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, because he just played the only one.
You don't pick the
He
one.
played double Spear Jailer. That's it. So that's 4. Then he destroyed 2 and only drew 1. Okay, so there should be 3, I believe. Wait, no. Okay, never mind. I don't even want to try.
This does not look promising here for Muzzy. He has to do something with the Conjurer's Calling, and he finds.
Okay.
I mean.
Oh, there's 5.
He's just
How is there
dead,
5?
Yeah, that's 11. Saiyan has the Cane Sun Fury from hand, and that's going to wrap it up. Inner one goes to Demon Hunter, which is looking like a solid pick so far. As Muzzy was not able to get anything online, and Saiyan, of course, doing a pretty good job keeping the pressure up, and also showcasing you some of Demon Hunter's better removal tools right now. Part of what makes this Demon Hunter interesting was that it started off being mislabeled as a control deck, and then people started understanding that its mid-range pressure game plan was good. Some people tried converting it to a full-on aggro deck. I think that was spearheaded by players like Ike, for example, and Zalay, who even brought it to Grandmasters. and then just realizing that what ends up making it good is just that its flexibility as a mid-range deck, which gives you some really big, dramatic tempo swings. So perhaps the best way to categorize this is that it's actually a tempo deck, which is very funny to think about.
Yeah.
Because tempo Demon Hunter used to mean something very different.
Yeah, I think it's like an all-in tempo deck, whereas you
Right.
miss one turn of removal or one turn of damage push and you lose. It's a very like I keep using inconsistent, but decks like that aren't necessarily inconsistent because that's how they're designed. It just lives on a knife's edge, I guess, where let's say Saiyan leaves a Mana Giant up for one turn, he loses that game. So needed to draw a very specific piece of removal the turn that he did. And I feel like a lot of Soul Demon Hunters go that way, where you're waiting for this one draw, and if you don't get it, you lose. If you do get it, you win. And those decks are kind of exciting. Good, kind of like one-dimensional. I'm hitting you in the face. If I miss one turn, I lose. Those decks are pretty exciting to watch, actually.
All right. Well, we are going to go into our next break here and take a few minutes to get set for Saiyan versus Muzzy game number 2. So don't go anywhere. We're just getting started with week 4 here of Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.
없어요. 오늘의 운세라는 그런 항목을 한 번씩 찾아봅니다. 그래서 예전에 우승했을 때 그 운세가 굉장히 좋게 나왔어서 그 뒤로는 계속 대회 때마다 보는 습관이 생긴 것 같아요.
자고 일어난 다음에 한참 뒤에 게임하면은 약간 지는. 근데 뭐 그런 게 있는 것 같아요. 그래서 그랜드마스터 전에 한 1시간 전에 일어나가지고 준비해요.
I don't have any superstition because when first time I come to BlizzCon in 2014 and I come to the temple for victory, but I lose layer. So after that, I didn't come to any temple anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard.
Oh my. My mum brings up lots of stories. I can. Oof.
I actually think I was like a very boring, kind of not doing much child.
What my family talks about when I was a kid, that I locked my brother in a room. I was a little taller, so I could get to the door, and I was like, brother, come here, come, and I just closed the door. It was pretty funny.
When I was younger, maybe 4 or 5, we used to go a lot to Lake District to visit my grandparents, and we would go out and would feed ducks. But I didn't really understand the different ducks, and the bigger ducks were geese, and I was pointing at them, going flamingo, flamingo. And my mum, whenever we see a duck or a geese, or whatever, she'll bring up the story of me thinking they were flamingos.
I always made up my own words when I talked Vietnamese with them, and it was like mixed German.
As a kid, I tried to climb everything, tried to climb the tree, and then there was like a big tree nearby, and it was like 25 meters tall, and I climbed up, and then I fell off the tree. But lucky me, I only broke my leg.
To the Osbolomance, the magic school of your legacy of glory shines. May they stand forevermore. They're kidding, of course.
Dear Magic Scooby, now to stay right and true. Us all we love you. Hey, hey, USA!
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. We're currently in the middle of a series, if you're just tuning in, between Muzzy and Just Saiyan. Game number 2 is about to begin. Saiyan currently up 1-0 after that Demon Hunter able to get a crushing victory over that mage. Didn't even really seem close, even though the life totals might indicate otherwise. Muzzy just kind of ran out of gas. kind of dialing in a little closer to the series. Both players still have their druids up right now, and druid does seem to be one of the more vulnerable classes that people might be targeting at the moment. And I am curious to see, whose druid will be able to come out on top, as well as some of these other X factors like mage and rogue coming out here from Muzzy's side. Game number 2 is going to be that druid versus that rogue matchup. Saiyan, of course, found great success with Malagos druid in the previous week. See if he's able to replicate that going into week number 4.
And he's also made a couple of changes to the deck. Notably, he did add in a copy of Lake Thresher because he's expecting a little bit more aggro in the metagame. He's also added a Fog Beam and is running 1 copy of Overflow. So a little bit more removal and a little bit more respect to aggression compared to what we saw from him in Specialist with the Malagos Druid, where he went kind of all in on combo and didn't expect aggro whatsoever. He had a secondary deck for aggro. No need to worry about it. He is running Geppetto, which, after playing a lot of Malagos Druid over the past couple of days, I've determined through my infinite wisdom, Dan, that Geppetto is better than no Geppetto in Malagos Druid. Yes, a definitive statement.
All we could ever want. Muzzy can start things off with the Worgen Infiltrator, and I do foresee this lining up very awkwardly for Saiyan.
Yeah. Double Cold Neophyte in the opening hand into Jandis Barav.
Right.
This is going to be... Saiyan's probably going to take a lot of damage. But he has Wild Growth if he can ever cast it, and Guardian Animals if he can ever cast it. So once he gets to the Guardian Animals, he's rolling along quite nicely. There's also, a chance for deviation. Speaker Gidra can offer you some removal in a pinch, and to deal with some of the big minions on board that Rogue doesn't necessarily expect. Like if they try and set up a minion, hide it behind a Cold Neophyte, that kind of thing to protect it, Speaker Gidra can come out and kind of ruin that plan. But right now, it does seem like Muzzy should be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, this Cold Neophyte's so annoying. And the debate would be how Saiyan chooses to approach it. He actually can answer it a little bit. Oh, wow. Oh, there you go. Lightning Boom finally balanced.
There you go. Just Lightning Boom the Wild Growth.
Now it costs 3 mana to get this Lightning Bloom online. Of course, 1 now and 2 later. But, all jokes aside, this definitely seems like a situation where Saiyan has to take these threats pretty seriously.
Yeah. I'll probably just kill him this Cold Neophyte.
Yeah.
I don't want any of this nonsense. He can actually get Guardian Animals out next turn. If another Cold Neophyte isn't played.
Right, and I mean, Muzzy doesn't have incentive to play the Ash Tongue Slayer right now. He does also have the ability to play Cold Neophyte installed in Overgrowth into the Guardian Animals, if that's what he's also anticipating. He also saw a really awkward turn from Saiyan, and he paused on 2. And when you see, like, Druids take their time on turns where it seems fairly obvious what they can do if they just have the normal amount of mana, you start thinking about what other things they could be holding. So I do feel like there's a lot of reasons to play the second Cold Neophyte.
Yeah. I also like the Sneaky Delinquent alongside of it, just because of the Ash Tongue Slayer, right? Because he needs to find something to do while he's waiting for Janus Brav. And while yes, he could hold on to the coin and coin out Janus Brav next turn, he would have a pretty limited amount of power on board. But same, you know, pretty happily just saying, I'll just take this 4-mana Wild Growth and be able to innervate out my Guardian Animals next turn. Oh no! But damn!
The curse of the Neophyte. Shadow Step, allowing it to actually pressure. And I mean, there's two ways to use the Shadow Step, right? One, aggressively to add more damage. Two, to be annoying. And to, you know, later make fun of Saiyan to his face after you go into the common area.
Yeah, what would be funny is if he just went over right now and did it and say it in your face, and then he would be disqualified for looking at his opponent's screen. But it would have been worth. Yeah, this is going to be pretty brutal for Saiyan, especially since there's a good amount of pressure coming his way. Leg pressure positioning is something to note. If you want to put your biggest, you know, least likely to want to be attacked minion in the middle, which I suppose this will suffice. It doesn't really matter in most scenarios. Just has to fire. Yikes.
Yeah, desperate times calls for desperate measures. Now Saiyan trying to cling on to the ability to play a card this game. Looks like he is going to be under some more pressure, though. This Janus Barov looks very threatening if it's putting out a lot of damage. And now Saiyan has to find a way for Guardian Animals to sweep here. I kind of wonder if he can draw a series of cards. Like, let's say he hits Twilight Runner. Can it draw cards to potentially swing? And I think he can because he has a Bog Beam. He does have a Thresher. But if he doesn't find Thresher and Twilight Runner, instead, say, finds Teacher's Pet, this could look really bad here for Saiyan. It might be death.
Yeah. That looks great.
Oh, that's actually a good draw.
That is, oh, yes, it is. It's now, he either gets double runner or leg pressure into runner. Gets double runner.
Well, he still has an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're happy to see runner, but this time, not nearly as good.
Yeah, he's got crystal powers that could be good. Got Bog Beam. Germination, no. Geppetto, no. Yeah, this is a I don't care which one is the illusion. I just need to hope that it's this one. And yeah, that'll do it.
He's just too far behind. He could Lightning Bloom and Hero Power, but that still means he's at 8, and his opponent has 8 with the dagger. So it looks like Saiyan is dead. Cold Neophyte coming up huge for Muzzy with that Shadow Step play as well. And that's going to be a Game 2 victory for Rogue, as we might see the beginning of the struggles of Druid if that Game 2 was any indication.
Yeah. Not the best spread for Saiyan with Malagos Druid specifically. Maybe can find some game against Tempo Mage. We'll have to see. But I do like the text that he's made for the deck. I think it does give a little bit more consistency against some of the faster decks. It's just, I mean, that kind of start against Druid, double Cold Neophyte, you're gonna have a lot of trouble finding a spot to win in that game. And even if he gets Leg Thrasher there at the end, once he still has Eviscerate, Wand Thief in hand, probably gonna find damage or value to find damage at a certain point. He needed multiple turns to try and come back in that game. So nice little win there with the Stealth Rogue.
Stealth Rogue is pretty fire, but so is this Spell Druid, TJ, that Muzzy's going to be queuing up. The head-to-head versus Malagos Druid also is one of the more interesting, yet can also be one of the more degenerate matchups in the game when both players are ramping. If Saiyan chooses to stay onto his Druid. But, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, I feel like in terms of matchup spread, I like Dispel Druid a little bit more. Also, it feels like when you're going up against Priests, which I believe is not really going to be too much of an issue for Saiyan's perspective. But, if Muzzy, for example, knows to do against Priest, I do feel like this Druid is a lot more, it's a lot better against it. So you don't have to worry too much about Malagos disruption.
Yeah. Oh. This is tough because the Spell Druid kind of just does the same thing for much of the game. They just have more consistent ways to do those things. More beasts, more ways to protect the beasts. Muzzy is not running Survival of the Fittest. That's one thing to note. Players seem to be on the fence. Some players run 1 copy, some players run 0. Very rarely do we see 2. 2 was more when prior to the Kill Thos nerf. Okay, Muzzy has Wild Growth and Guardian Animals, but Saiyan has Coin Lightning Bloom and Guardian Animals. And Innervate with Guardian Animals.
Okay, that's a lot of mana.
Do it next turn if he wants.
Right, and then we'll have 2 mana going into the following turn. I mean, getting board presence early is really, really big in this matchup. However, Muzzy doesn't have a good answer to this. So even though he's going to see the ramp, he's going to see the 2 forms of ramp coming into play here, and Guardian Animals comes out.
See what he gets. This is the double runner spot. Oh, hits the double runner.
Gosh, runner. And Muzzy is in trouble.
Spawn with his own runner. Oh, and he also draws 3 of his beasts. But the one thing about his list is he actually runs the full suite of beasts. There's still 3 left in his deck.
That's right. The full Muzzy's Arc. 2x2. Okay, well, Twilight Runner 1 draws cards that he can't play. And, I mean, I guess it's good that he ramps so much in terms of drawing his cards, because it doesn't look like he's going to play anything else here.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I mean, that's kind of what you anticipate by ramping out so aggressively, because you don't really expect the following turn to be super strong. And now it's Muzzy's turn to strike back. And with this Overgrowth draw, I am intrigued, because if he gets ability for Exotic Mount Seller to have some really good cards to back her up, you have the animated Broomstick as well. So I am intrigued by it. Looks like Muzzy instead is going to use the Broomstick right now this turn, which is also a very good use of it too.
Yeah. Makes me think he's not going to attack with the Twilight Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Protects it from Leg Thresher by putting the minions... Wait.
No. Not fully.
Not fully, no. Because he can just kill the Twilight Runner.
Right.
At least he won't kill both. And he would have to have Lightning Bloom and second Guardian Animals and have not drawn his Leg Thresher at this point, which...
Yeah.
He's drawn a lot of cards. It's only one of.
It's purely swipe, I think, if Saiyan had swipe in the hand.
Yep.
Saiyan has his Leg Thresher ready to go. Might use a Moonfire here just because as much as he'd love to save it for the ideal combo, he doesn't have Malagos. And he doesn't want to fall too far behind on board development.
Yeah.
So
also,
this
he did
makes
put on
sense.
a good amount of damage early on. Was he down to 19? He may not need the damage combo. Ultra Pedo in his deck too, so there'd be a lot of stuff left to go. But now, despite Saiyan going for that, this is maybe the reason why I would have liked waiting from Saiyan's perspective, because no matter what he did, unless he picked up exactly like Innervate and Wild Growth from the 2 Twilight Runners, he had a dead turn. And yes, you can assume that you're going to get really far ahead by drawing a ton of cards and by having 2 unanswered 5/4s. But you do need to think about your follow-up to those case scenarios, and maybe if he waits 1 more turn and holds on to like the innervate in that situation, he finds himself in a better position, because like this turn he could get out the second guardian animals potentially, or have a little bit more flexibility if he doesn't pick up ramp. But you know, it's easy to be results oriented in that type of situation when Saiyan quickly fell behind on board after going very far in with the guardian animals on turn 3.
I wonder.
Yeah, guardian animals on turn 3 is like really powerful, but you know, the follow through is super important, and looks like Saiyan is just fallen very far behind because of that. So ultimately, it goes back to some stuff that even other casters have been saying. You know, I know that in Europe, casters have been kind of advocating for like, don't be so reliant on cards like Lightning Bloom. Really try to seek that ability to get ramp as fast as you can, so that way you can ultimately just be secure in the mid game. Because now Saiyan has to do some pretty suboptimal things.
Yeah, not the greatest.
Not the greatest. Yeah, just dumping hand space. It's just not a really good sign. And now Muzzy's in full control. He can actually just kind of play this overflow here very confidently if he, because he's so far ahead and he can still even clear off the board and stay healthy.
Yeah.
So many contradictions.
I mean, saying that last turn from Saiyan is basically a sign that says, I'm going to overflow next turn. And if you have the board lead and you also have overflow in hand, you might as well take that as an opportunity to either, 1, pressure incredibly heavily, which he doesn't really have the option to do, or number 2, just matches overflow with your own.
Curious.
And that he does have the ability to do. So I'll go with that. The other play you can make, which is maybe slightly riskier, is just to play Exotic Mount Seller.
I mean, I like that as well. I feel like when you're such in a driver's seat here, you're in a really, really good spot.
Spell Burst is activated for the Ghidra, so I don't think there's a huge target on the Ghidra. So if I'm going to play the Teacher's Pet here, why not just play Mount Seller and then overflow next turn? You'd have to double swipe to kill your Mount Seller. He doesn't even have the mana to do that next turn. I don't know. Just food for thought, Dan.
It's definitely worth thinking about, especially since I don't know if we're going to have much time for Saiyan to react here. It looks like he's going to take a full defensive stance. And without the ability to utilize his Malagos and the Forest Warden Omu for that swing turn at the swipe, he's going to be struggling. So this looks like Muzzy's in the position pinning Saiyan into a tough spot here. Not to mention, I think he's at 10 cards, so he has to dump a card here. I mean, if you do, though, are you giving up your chance to have any kind of comeback? But what does a comeback look like when you're staring at 12 and you're at 26? It's threatening half your life total.
I don't think you burn a card. That Lightning Bloom, I think, is crucial. Or I don't think you throw away the Lightning Bloom. You just have to hope that the next draw is not an impactful one. Because what can we do next turn? For Lightning Bloom, Force Ward, Omu Germination. No, because that just gives you 8 mana crystals back. Geppetto, Lightning Bloom. Or it would have to be Lightning Bloom, Geppetto, draw Malagos plus.
The Ysera Burn does sting, but now we have Geppetto trying to fish. Maybe?
There is
Lightning Bloom.
Malagos. And
because he has Omu in hand.
There's no other minions.
Alexstrasza?
It's in the hand.
So he plays Omu, germinates, then plays Geppetto, and needs to find Malagos and Alexstrasza, right?
He has Alexstrasza in his hand.
Oh yeah, he has Alexstrasza. Whoops.
The only minion in the deck is Malagos.
All right.
So it's guaranteed. I mean, this allows him to... It gives him the ramp and then refreshes mana crystals, so this will give him the 1 mana Malagos. But, yeah, like... He needs to Alexstrasza, Malagos same turn. Because he's used Germination. He used Germination to get this turn off, which is, I mean, he had to. He was going to die if he didn't. Yeah, and there's just not much left that he can do. Because, like, even then, his damage is not super limited, but maybe he can clear up a board if he picks up second swipe off the top?
So many.
Yeah, no, because he doesn't even have the mana. Because he's only going to be at 7 mana crystals next turn. So Malagos plus 1 swipe is going to have to clear up enough board for him to win with tempo?
I mean, he's got a lot, but the Lake Thresher does clean up these 4 health minions, and there's still going to be more problems coming in with this overflow. Number 2, putting him even further outside that range. So it's kind of like what you were describing, which was Saiyan found a way to survive, but I don't even know if he has a clear way to win.
The time run low.
Well, I mean, Muzzy looks super clear for takeoff and just develop. And that should be the winning push here. Saiyan needs to react. He does have the Malagos swipe, which I'm pretty sure Muzzy can anticipate. But it's not going to clear off the full board just by itself.
No.
Oh, if he had another swipe, it would have been double swipe. I think he has to swipe here, though, to at least clear off one wave of the minions, because you can't just leave up this much power. You're going to die.
I wonder.
Then he has no winning condition. There's no Ysera Unleashed. His Malagos would die to a hero power. Guardian Animals is dead. He has no beast. He has just no minions up in deck. There's just no way for him to win, yeah.
There really is nothing much he can do. Muzzy takes the game number 3. As it does seem like there's a pattern developing right now for day 1, which is one player wins game 1, and then 2 players able to get back-to-back wins and put themselves in match point scenario. So now that Muzzy's Druid is through and his Rogue, he just has a win with his Mage, the deck that he lost in the very beginning. And he doesn't have to worry about that Warrior deck, but he still has to go up against Priest and Druid. And these are matchups that I'm pretty sure that he's happy with. And so we'll see if ends up being enough to get over the hump here and take down his roommate, his former teammate, and obviously a good friend. It's going to be fun to see the conclusion of this series. Saint's going to switch with Highlander Priest.
Yeah, Highlander Priest. It's pretty standard tech Highlander Priest. He does have acidic Swamp Ooze, but no Cobalt Sticky Finger. And one acidic Swamp Ooze is in a Conquest metagame is pretty standard, I would say, in a Highlander Priest deck. Just because you have so many flex spots, having one weapon destruction can be pretty crucial.
Shall bring victory.
Also has the animated broomstick, which I'd love as a tech card. Lazul Scheme as well. In Highlander Mage or Highlander Priest specifically, I think you do need some additional ways to activate Cabal Acolyte, and if you're playing Cabal Shadow Priest in your deck, which he is, Lazul Scheme can be kind of necessary. So I do like the construction. It's a good all-around Highlander Priest deck, I'm saying. Not targeting anything specifically, but has answers to just about everything. So we shall see. The big cards we're looking for here are obviously Mind Render Lucia, because that can complete, especially a Mage on the coin, can completely kill their early tempo, completely kill their game plan. Also just kind of looking for early minion. Because if you stay ahead on tempo, force the Mage to react to what you're doing instead of build a proactive game plan. That's good for you as well.
Yeah, we know what's bad for Mage? Minions you can't target.
Yeah, that's terrible.
You gotta use AoE or random targeting, like Devolving Missiles or Arcane Missiles. This is very inconvenient. Looking at the Wand Thief choices, pretty mediocre stuff. So I like the Tome of Intellect choice. I don't think cards like Flame Ward are very applicable, and I think everything else is too slow. And he's got like he's got incentive to play more combo centric because he has Chinbala.
Ooh. Sees the Wand Thief spell. Also sees the Mana Giant. Knew the coin was there, so that's a bummer.
I must consider.
I mean, that might actually be still solid, right? Because like, Madame Lazul puts a coin in your hand, and you get some information to plan around. Just because he has cards like that eventually hit higher curves, so I feel like there's a case for the coin.
I feel like there's been twice today where I would have been completely baited and taken Mana Giant and been like, I'm a priest. I play spell cards outside my deck all the time. I would have seen 2 cards in my hand, or 1 card that's already been played, which was the Fairy Dragon, and Lightwell. And I'd say, wow, Mana Giant already only costs 6.
Well, I mean, in the end, I don't think the priest feels like the need to play that proactive. They can just kind of react to a lot of mage stuff. Because even if you like do all this stuff with Mana Giant, they'll just freeze your Giant, right? They'll just play Ray of Frost and push damage. So it feels like Saiyan's kind of prioritizing like amassing his cards to ensure that he'll have reactive plays to anything his opponent does. Okay.
You don't pick the one.
All Dan. Still would have taken an 8/8.
I mean, now he gets the Mana Giant, right? The Mind Vision copies it.
That'd be sick, because now his Mana Giant costs 6 right now. But there's 4 cards in hand that, well, there would have been. Yeah, there's 4 cards in hand.
Right.
That didn't start, so it'd be 2. It costs 2 in hand. It's getting lower.
I don't disagree.
Numbers going down.
Well, Muzzy doesn't get the kills on the arcane missiles that he's looking for outside of the Fairy Dragon, but that is a nice snipe.
I guess he has Forbidden Words, but Conjurer's Calling on the Madame Lazul and Broomstick. There was some. I feel like there was some decent amount of merits there. I guess this is just cleaner, right? You get to clear off both.
Yeah, I like.
I feel like Conjurer's Calling is a little bit more difficult to use, and maybe trying to find some fancy situations to use it could have been fun, but alas, Saiyan is not a fancy lad.
All right, well, Muzzy picks up more combo cards. He's just going to go ahead and pass on the full hand.
Oh, no!
Jeez, Mindrender Lucia. And here's the thing, like, Saiyan doesn't actually have a good hand to respond to other things that he can do to dump. Wait, can you find a way to dump all of Muzzy's hand and play those Mana Giants? That'd be sick.
I wonder.
Wait. Yes. Yes, Dan.
I mean, okay, so let's count it. Mana Giant's at 6, but he only has 3 mana. He doesn't have Sorcerer's Apprentice. I don't think he can do it, unfortunately.
Oh no, that's
just
an
too
interaction
expensive.
that we saw. The Mana Giants. The cost not adjust to what you played?
Okay, well, he's just going to prioritize putting as much tempo as possible. But, I mean, it is like a turn where you feel like you would want to at least weigh that decision, right? Because you just saw your opponent, like, draw cards and pass on, like, a turn where they usually start to, like, turn 4 and 5 is usually when the mage starts to, like, if they have opportunities to develop big, they usually can because they can Sorcerer's Apprentice, then play things like the Mana Cyclone, or they can play Jandis Barov and develop. By playing almost nothing and drawing cards, it kind of makes me feel like Muzzy's holding a combo-centric hand, which makes me feel like playing a Lucia sooner rather than later is incentivized. But we know that based off the way Muzzy's hand looks, that probably wouldn't have worked out super well for Saiyan. So I think it's a good hold. But ultimately, like, when is the time to play it then? Is it next turn?
He did dump 2. He knows that there's a Mana Giant in hand. He did dump 2 spells that didn't start in his deck. Because the discount on Mana Giant, correct me if you know that I'm wrong, doesn't stick with the deck, it sticks with the player.
I think it's tied. So there's different values that are tied into the game when it says like for every time you've done something, it usually implies like tied to the hero itself, which is why there's some weird rules with like fatigue and hero cards and stuff like that in the past. Like I think people were like anticipating like Jiraxis or other cards like that to reset fatigue, and there's just like really interesting interactions like that that are super narrow in corner case in Hearthstone. But it sounds right, at least from what you're describing.
Saiyan is dumping. He knows a Mana Giant in his hand. He's dumping all the cards that he has in his hand that didn't start in his deck.
Right.
So then he can play Mind Render or Lucia, knowing the Mana Giant's there. Play the rest of the spells and dump the Giants.
That sounds right.
So the longer he waits, actually, the better it gets, because he knows that as long as he keeps track of how much the Mana Giants cost, he's good. But now he's lost his chance because Muzzy's going to play Mana Giants. But he knows that if he waits that long, and then Muzzy ends up playing the Mana Giants, one of 2 things happen. Either he gets to steal the Mana Giants and win the game, or Muzzy's forced to play both Mana Giants and he can Shadow Word Ruin. So it's a checkmate situation. But now Muzzy found like the perfect counter. He dumped his hand. He played 1 Mountain Giant or 1 Mana Giant.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a possibility for that disruption still here.
I must consider.
So he knows Archmage Antonice in hand. That's the only card he knows. He doesn't know second Mana Giant because he only saw 1 Mana Giant.
Okay, so let's find something with this Tome Intellect potentially. No? If you Mind Render Lucia, you get 4 mana crystals left. Looks like he's just going to ditch that. Well, this is leaving him very little room to do anything besides Shadow Word Ruin right now. What does Raise Dead give him?
Any number of things. He's had a lot of garbage die.
Expired Merchant. Wait, Expired Merchant gives him more copies of Hunter's Calling. Wait, he can Expired Merchant than the Broomstick.
What is happening?
That's such a weird combination.
Once he just did nothing for like 8 turns.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the problem with things like playing an Archmage Antonice in your deck and trying to combo, because sometimes the Tempo Mage just stalls in momentum, and then people are like, haha, I thought it was a Tempo Mage, you're floating like 7 mana crystals a turn. And I mean, we usually just say that because we don't really know how else to describe Mage's shenanigans. Maybe calling a shenanigan Mage is probably more appropriate.
Well, but my point was he did nothing for like 8 turns, and now it still looks like he's ahead.
I have studied.
What?
That is
2
insane.
magic tricks, a Tome of Intellect, everything that kind of converts into other cards into his hand.
Yeah, and also a Conjurer's Calling for the free Mana Giant that he played.
Oh my gosh, Walking Fountain as well. Muzzy's like out of time with stuff.
That was very well executed. He set up as big a board as he could. He got Conjurer's Calling out. He picked 2 1-mana spells from the magic tricks to combo with Archmage Antonice if this board gets cleared, which I don't think it can get cleared, even if Soul Mirror. It would have to be exactly Plague of Death, which, he does play, but maybe Saiyan doesn't want to pull the trigger on that because there's a secret up that he does not know what it is. We know that it's a Netherwind portal. But now he just has a bunch of minions.
Yeah.
And a broomstick.
And bunch of minions and a broomstick. And a Lucia that had a lot of potential but never lived up to it.
I must consider.
And Saiyan Is there any way for him to turn this around? That secret also is really disruptive. So maybe Sethic Veilweaver and Apotheosis to start things off here. I think that's his only play to consider right now, maybe? Okay, he's gonna avoid the Veilweaver. Doesn't feel like any spell can really help him. Oh! Taunt minion. He's gonna go for the Doomsayer. Nope. And that's it. 3-1. Muzzy gets 3 wins in a row, and now it looks like Muzzy's just really happy with that result. I mean, he knows how good Saiyan is. He knows how scary his roommate is as a threat. And of course, maybe just correcting a little bit of what should have been for Season 1, where Muzzy was kind of put in tough spots with his division and had to really climb through. And it was kind of a scary thought of potentially even losing Muzzy as a Grandmaster, right, at one point. But looks like he's going to start things off on the right foot with a 1-0 lead in this division. And overall, another Game 1 victory for one player, followed by 3 consecutive wins from the other.
Yeah. Could be a trend today. What is there a name for it? The premature reverse sweep, is that what it's called? That's just a random name that I gave it. I was curious if there's actually a real name for it.
I don't think. Well, either way.
We'll call it. Okay. Agree to call it a premature reverse sweep. There you go.
Yeah. It's not really a reverse
He started
sweep.
the reverse sweep too early.
It's kind of like a mid-series sweep, so to speak. But either way, our next series coming up is No Hands Gamer versus Language Hacker. Another battle between 2 players who have really kind of shot up the ranks in the Americas in particular. As you take a look at their lineups, No Hands Gamer kind of bringing his patented decks that he's loved for a long time. He has Priest that he really enjoys, the Warlock, the Mage, and the Rogue. So with that, we're going to take a few minutes and get set for series number 3, so don't go anywhere. More